If you've ever started a business, you know that almost immediately after you decided to make a serious run at your business idea, someone was standing over your shoulder telling you what you really should do to make it successful. It doesn't matter if you started your first business yesterday or you founded a dozen companies over decades. Yes, there is an entire industry of folks dedicated to telling you what you really should do to make your startup successful. There are advisors and mentors and incubators and accelerators and investors and on and on and on. And just so I don't get accused of clickbait, I'm not here to trash advisors and incubators and investors. I'm here to trash your friends, your acquaintances, your colleagues, your uncle who ran that restaurant for ages, your mom's friend who did Rodan and Fields for a bit in the aughts. Oh, and also most of those advisors, incubators, and investors, because they're all wrong about what it's going to take to make your startup successful. I recently started posting these videos because I realized that my writing is rooted as much in the delivery of the words as it is in the quality of the content. Anyway, the project itself is immaterial. It's what comes next that relates to you and your startup, because the same kind of thing happens to me and my startups every time. Got a friend, known him forever. I love him to death. He's smart and creative, also business-minded, but most importantly, he has always wanted the best for me. And as I say those words, I realize how rare it is in life to be able to say those words. His reaction to my first video was kudos, of course, and then in a way that I'm sure was fueled by his excitement for me and his innate knowledge of what it takes to be successful as a creator, he advised me to flip my camera to portrait, add captions, edit the video into bite-sized clips, and TikTok the shit out of it. The thing is, my first reaction to his advice was that I'd rather stab my brain through my eyeball than amp up the volume on my way too inside jokes and way too subtle histrionics in the name of turning content I really believe in into words that only exist as the meaningless connective tissue between making clown faces that gets me known the world over by my handle. The other thing is, he's 100% right. I know exactly where this video thing is likely to end up. I'll get a handful of views and a subscriber or two, and then I'll get all skeptical of conjuring my subtle energy into shooting a video that's only going to be watched by my mom. She's already a subscriber. But the reason I'm doing the videos at all is because that's only the likely outcome, not the definite outcome. Like Doctor Strange in Infinity War, I've seen all 14,605 possible outcomes of this video project, and I'm betting everything on the one where people appreciate the subtle delivery and the buried jokes, which are just there to get them to think about the content, which I hope will make them a little bit smarter about their business. So maybe they'll stop listening to other people and go with their gut. See, it all ties together. So yes, I know the alternative is to dance like a monkey and wave my jazz hands while screaming about product market fit, and I'm actually doing that, just in a different way. I probably could do all the optimizing of both personality and delivery that would put me on that Mr. Beast level of YouTubery. Well, no, I couldn't. Look at me. But my point is, I started the video project to fill a gap, not to dump a little more shit on an already massive shit pile. Let me state for the record that I'm absolutely not against anyone starting their own business in any way for any reason. If you want to follow someone else's model for some side cash or just to get out from under the crushing weight of the working world for a few hours a day, freaking go for it with my blessing. That said, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you need to stop listening to what everyone says you should do. I know, they're just trying to be helpful. They're just telling you what they see. They're describing what everyone who's successful at something like what you're trying to do has already done. And I put like in quotes because it could be a lot like what you're trying to do, or it could be not even remotely the same, but maybe a little like, and you don't have time to make that judgment call. This, by the way, is why I don't do advice flyovers of specific businesses. If I've got you for 10 minutes, like I do with an article or a video, I stick with the generic because my advice is usually 100% different than everyone else's, rooted in the experience of doing something no one has ever done before, instead of ivory tower thinking or reading something in an article that one time. I only do specific one-on-one when I'm being paid for my time. And thus, I can spend a lot of time thinking about and working with the startup to bring my experience to bear properly. Look, your friends, acquaintances, and relatives usually aren't working with you this way. And those advisors, incubators, and investors who are only concerned with the size of their portfolio, the length of their track record, or the likelihood of their return, those folks are in the same boat, not your boat. They're chasing their own success, not yours. All right, here's where I tie it all together. Question: how do you know when someone is 100% right, but their advice is 100% wrong for the success of your startup? When you know what success for your startup really means. I started being able to identify what and who to listen to when I came to terms with the type of entrepreneur I am. For me, it's about making something I'm proud of, something that can deliver more value than cost and exist on its own. It's not about winning or numbers or fame or whatever. Thus, in almost every case where I've taken the advice because the advice was 100% spot on about what I was doing, but 100% wrong about how I was trying to do it, I've wound up stunting the growth of my business. Now, that's just me, but the equation I just gave you is infallible. If you're into winning or numbers or fame or whatever, the same statement applies. You need to decide if you're starting a business for you or for something else. Then you need to stick to whatever's going to drive the success for your own scenario. It's not a guarantee of that success by any means, but at least you'll succeed or fail on your own terms. There's nothing worse than failing on someone else's terms. And succeeding on someone else's terms, trust my experience on this, that usually winds up feeling pretty empty. Unless, you're making a shitload of side cash. Hey, Jeff. I'm sorry, dude. But if it's any consolation, I actually took your advice. I started messing around with the screen ratios and I posted a couple of videos to TikTok, so we'll see where that goes. You are absolutely right. It's actually about reaching as many entrepreneurs and potential entrepreneurs and leaders and innovators as I can find and spreading the message. It's not about dancing and waving my jazz hands. So thank you for that, and thank you for being such a good friend. This is something that entrepreneurs go through. The minute you decide you're going to start a business, or the minute you decide you're going to, let's say, invent a new technology, people are going to come out of the woodwork. They're going to be your friends. They're going to be your relatives. They're going to be strangers. They're going to be investors. They're going to be advisors. They're all going to have advice. And some of that advice is actually good. But I wouldn't take that advice until you've figured out how to integrate that advice into your mission, your vision, and your product position to make that advice align with the goals that you and your startup are trying to achieve. Once I figured this out with Jeff's advice, I was able to pretty easily incorporate it and not feel like an idiot doing it. So it doesn't matter where that advice comes from, including mine. Always take it with a grain of salt and make sure you can integrate it into what you're trying to do before you do it. Vision, mission, position, things like that are things I talk about in Teaching Startup, where I actually, along with some other experts, dole out advice on a regular basis. And if you want to support what I'm doing here, become a member of Teaching Startup at teachingstartup.com. Teaching Startup provides access to actionable, insightful, and honest startup advice for entrepreneurs at all experience levels, regardless of their connections or resources. If you join Teaching Startup, you'll get access to over 700 questions from hundreds of members, answers from hand-picked, experienced, serial entrepreneurs like myself, advice posts, member polls, plus you get new Q&A each week in an exclusive newsletter. It's 80% of the benefit of a startup advisor, but there's no small talk and scheduling and all that stuff, so it's just a fraction of the cost. So you can like or subscribe or whatever you want. Thank you for watching this video, and if you want to support me, you can help me help you by becoming a member at teachingstartup.com. I appreciate you. Now go do great things.